Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to the second channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a pretty interesting thing that I got in the mail recently, and it's a brand new arcade stick from a company called TR Fight Stick. And this is basically their octopus arcade stick. And if you remember a while ago, I actually I did a video covering a few of their products, and I have them right here on the bench top. The first one was there was a case for the Sega Dreamcast. It's an all aluminum, I believe, case with a pretty cool logo that illuminates. It's called the Dream Case. So I basically went over how to install this, and it basically comes configured so you can put in your SD card for a GDMU. It has a aftermarket power supply, and it also accommodates the HDMI mods. So that was really cool. But also in that video, I took a look at their Octopus Fight Stick, which was in the prototype phase. And it's pretty awesome. So, I mean, it comes with these like big grips on the bottom, so, you know, it firmly grips the table. But this one was 3D printed, and again, it was a prototype. Now, one of the interesting things about it is it had a internal VMU, so I think you could store up to like 10 VMUs in here, and you can cycle through them. So really, it was kind of designed to pair with the Sega Dreamcast, but it had, you know, a bunch of other functionality and connectivity. But with their actual version, the final version that they're actually going to be selling, and I think they did a Kickstarter and they're actually starting to fulfill those orders, but it's way different from basically what I've seen and heard. But I actually have the actual production Octopus Fight Stick from TR Fight Stick. And as you can see, it comes in a very big box. Kind of reminds me of like Razer, you know, the company Razer, they make like keyboards and mice, other computer peripherals. Really cool looking. I had to put my wide angle lens on. Nothing on the sides, just a logo there and their Octopus logo here. But this is sealed, so let's go ahead and open it up and see what comes inside. So I'm actually pretty excited about this. This is a heavy box. So, all right, wow. Okay, a lot comes in here. So we got like I don't know if this is a sticker or some kind of like hang thing. Looks like another Kickstarter, Mayhem Brawler, some sort of game. And then we got a quick start guide. So I'll be going over some of these features here. Again, this is like plastic, so pretty cool. And this looks like a sticker. And then, okay, here, so this is one of the consoles. This is basically an RJ45 jack to Dreamcast. So that's kind of the interface this uses. They have tons of cables for tons of consoles, but I will be testing it with the Sega Dreamcast because it is kind of what it's designed for, even though it is compatible with, like, I think it's like over 20 consoles. And then we got a, USB Type-C, so USB Type-A to USB Type-C. And this is basically to connect to more modern consoles like the PS5, the Nintendo Switch. And it comes in a really nice kind of green color, and it's a braided cable, so high quality. It's even got their little octopus logo on it. And here is the ball top. Okay, I got a white one. Ball top with a dust shield for the actual stick. So really nice packaging. Really, I mean, beefy foam, and it definitely comes in probably. It'll come in one piece for sure, but let's see if we can, oh my God, this thing weighs a ton. It almost looks like it's bigger than the prototype. I'm gonna do a side-by-side just so we can see how much changed. Oh my God, that is beautiful. Holy cow. Ooh, this is heavy. So this is actually, wow, this looks totally different. All right, let's put the dust cover on here real quick. Okay. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Let's peel this off. All right. Wow, so this comes, at least this particular model comes in a sort of, so it's like a brushed metal and it's anodized. I love their logo right here. All right, let's compare it just actually really quickly to the prototype, at least in terms of size. So this is the prototype, which is significantly lighter. Man, they really changed the design. Now, if we compare the two, the size differences is probably the biggest thing you notice. Another thing I noticed is here you basically had an RJ45 only. So, and then you have you have a switch here, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and then you got another button here. But on the new one, you actually have quite a few others. So you have your USB Type-C, which is kind of for your more modern consoles. And then you have this DB15. So it's like so this is kind of supposed to be compatible with, I think, like Neo Geo, some more like arcade hardware, like maybe like a Super Gun or something. And then your RJ45, which is like for all the other more legacy type consoles. So it's like modern consoles, legacy consoles, Neo Geo, and maybe like actual arcade hardware. You can see they kind of had very similar design choices in terms of like the angularity of the design. But now it's a glass. It's a special glass called Glanova glass. And apparently this is stronger than Gorilla Glass. Just the mere fact that it's kind of like a glass material, it means it probably won't scratch like a acrylic would. And again, it has these screws here, so you can actually remove these, remove the buttons. You can change the configuration of the buttons. Of course, you can also change the artwork in the back. You can probably make your own, so you can totally customize that as well. So it's a very customizable arcade stick. And then you notice there is an OLED up here, and that is for the VMU functionality. So I do think this was, again, geared towards the Sega Dreamcast, but again, it is compatible with over 20 consoles. I have a list of the compatible consoles here. So basically with the USB-C port, you can do PS3, 4, and 5, the original Xbox, the Switch, Analog Pocket. Wow, you can even do the Analog Pocket. And some of those mini consoles like the Mega Drive Mini, the PlayStation Mini, the Neo Geo Mini, and the Astro City like little cab mini. And then the RJ45, which is this one right here. I don't know if you can see that. And then that's the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, the Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, which I will be demonstrating, the NES, the Super NES, the GameCube, and 64, PC Engine TurboGrafx 16. And then with this DB15, you can do the Neo Geo console, so I'm assuming that also includes the Neo Geo CD, but also the AES, and I'm assuming also the MVS if you have like a consoleized version of that. The Mega Drive, so you have to use that for the Mega Drive. And then, yeah, a Super Gun, so you can use this with actual arcade hardware. As far as setting this up with the various consoles, there are several ways to do it. There's an auto detect feature, but that's mostly going to be with your consoles that use the USB-C. For those, so actually, yeah, only the PS5, PS4, PS3, and the Xbox 360 have the auto detect function. As for all the other consoles, it's a sort of button combination. So you would either press one of these buttons, you would hold it down, and then plug it into that console, and then it will recognize that it's under that setting. And yeah, so from there you can play for a variety of different consoles. So here in the manual, it does tell you what the button combinations are for each of those consoles. Again, pretty easy. You just hold that button combination, you plug it into the console, and then you should be good to go. At least that's how it's explained here, and I'm going to give that a shot with the Switch because the Switch does not have the auto detect feature. Basically, I'm going to be holding, according to the instructions for the Nintendo Switch, I hold the 1K button, which is this one here, and then I would plug that into the Switch, and then I should be good to go. And apparently, once you pair it once, I think it automatically detects it from that point out. So you only have to, I think, do that once. So don't quote me on that. I'm going to give it a shot here in a minute. All right, so now here, looking at here in the top, you have your obvious start, select, home, your VMU, turbo, and then touch, L3, R3. So with the turbo button, basically, it's a really simple process. If you want any one of these buttons to be turbo, you just basically hold that down, and then you press the button you want turbo, and it should be set for that specific button, which seems easy enough. Now, another cool thing about this is apparently it can handle controllers that came in like two different form factors. Like a good example is the Sega Genesis. So with the Sega Genesis, you had like the 3 button and the 6 button. There's also a way to configure that. So you can tell it whether you're playing with a 3 button or 6 button Genesis, but it's also for the PC Engine, there was a 2 button and a 6 button. And then for the Sega Dreamcast, whether you're playing with their arcade stick or you want to basically emulate the Sega Dreamcast arcade stick or the actual just controller gamepad. So there are options basically to sort of configure this if a console has more than one form factor for a controller, which is pretty cool. So they really thought about compatibility with this arcade stick. Now, another thing that you can configure is sort of what you want the joystick to emulate, or what you want it to be sort of paired to. You can either pair it to the the left analog stick, the D-pad, or the right analog stick, depending on the controller. So for example, if you are playing a PS5 game, you could either have the analog stick either be the D-pad, the left analog stick, or the right analog stick. So basically, again, it's a button combination, and either you can use the switch, it's a 3-pole switch to determine which one you want, or you can set it manually, again, through some button configurations which are in the instructions. Now, I've been sort of out of the fighting game scene for a while. I actually really haven't played any for modern consoles, but apparently some utilize the touchpad on the controller, like for example the PS5 controller, and you can actually you can actually map that to be either the left side, the middle, or the right side of the controller. And again, that is through button combinations, very configurable. Probably something I would never use. I mean, I probably mostly would use this with my consoleized MVS. And then of course you have the VMU functionality. Again, we'll be turning that on and we'll be checking it out once I connect this to the Dreamcast. So that's basically, I think your main interface is with the VMU button here. There's actually also an application for your computer to sort of either, I guess, download your save files or upload some save files. So it's a pretty cool way to back it up. All right, so the next thing I want to do is sort of take a look at the internals because, the outside build quality looks fantastic, but I do kind of also want to see what the inside looks like. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, wow. So very clean on the inside. Again, probably steel plating. Very nice. You got your grips here. And it looks like it maybe is some sort of either paint or maybe a anodized finish. So overall, very nice quality. On the inside, it's very simple. It's very clean, very organized. And they kind of went with the, their kind of green theme with their wiring. So obviously very serviceable. You can actually probably very easily remove any of these buttons and you can customize the colors. Here you have, and apparently they're all Sanwa parts, which I love Sanwa parts. Actually, all the arcade sticks that I built used Sanwa, but you can swap these out, obviously, probably for Saimatsu, I think is the other kind of big Japanese brand. And then there was that American brand, I forget which one, I never used them, but yeah, so you can see they have a couple custom PCBs. You have this right here, which is probably responsible for all of the, kind of configuring for each of the various consoles. But yeah, no, these are completely custom PCBs. You can see here, they got their logos. And my understanding is they actually worked with Brooks. So Brooks is kind of one of those companies that at least I have some experience with. They make sort of those adapters, like wireless adapters for different controllers for like legacy consoles. I'm sure they do a ton of other stuff. And yeah, the materials, I mean, each of these wires, they're like exactly to length. So this is like a completely custom wire harness. And with these right angle connectors that are completely insulated, I mean, look at that. I mean, very short wire runs, very good quality. Like this is incredibly well organized. Like I'm really impressed. Everything is like a right angle, so you don't have like things sticking out. So as far as like choosing materials and kind of how they laid out everything, I'm very, very impressed. Now let's sort of give this thing a test out with a few consoles. All right, so the first console I'm going to try this out with is with the Sega Dreamcast. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the RJ45 that it came with and plug it into my Dreamcast, which I have. You can kind of see it here. This is the one I modded for a different video. Okay, so in order to basically set this to the Sega Dreamcast, I need to press the 1P and the 4P button. And that's according to the instructions, and then I power it on. Hey, and look at that, we got power. So it has recognized the console, and we got a little happy face here on the OLED. And they changed this, it's like a blue OLED display instead of I think it was white before, or like a very light blue, and now it's like a dark blue. All right, so let's see if we can do a fight game. Let's see here, I got a few games here that I can try. Let's try Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I'm not a fighting game connoisseur, so please don't laugh at my arcade skills here, but let's give it a shot. So you can see here on the screen, it's loaded the Marvel vs. Capcom logo, so this is basically emulating the VMU. Oop. Oh yeah. I mean, this is... I mean, this just feels fantastic. And the arcade stick is not budging at all. It is firmly planted on the table. But yeah, no, I have to say, I am like super duper impressed. So I think it's safe to say this works really well. Now I'm gonna try and program a turbo button. So I'm gonna hold the turbo button and we'll make that. Okay, so turbo is activated for this. So let's just see how that works. Yeah, so it's, yep, so that's working, as you can see. All right, so the next one I wanna try, I'm gonna try and use this with the Nintendo Switch. Okay, it's on. Hey, there we go. And I got all my games. So let's just do the Ninja Turtles, I think Shredder's Revenge. Yeah, this works fantastic. Ooh. Yeah, so this works great. I mean, it's pretty seamless. I mean, as long as you know the button combinations, you can get this working very easily with almost any console. So yeah, really impressed. All right, so I guess to wrap the review up, I guess the one last thing we need to talk about is sort of the price of the thing, and it is expensive. I'm looking at the website. It looks like it's about $450, and they're taking pre-orders right now, but they're also fulfilling, I think, their crowdfunding campaign. So those are being shipped currently, but they are taking pre-orders, I guess, for the next round. And you know, $450, that's almost like the price of a console. That is really, really expensive. But as far as the materials, the quality, the support, in terms of how many consoles this works with, obviously you can also update the firmware. So I'm assuming, again, you know, never buy a product based off assumptions or future promises, but you know, they'll probably issue more firmware updates, maybe more compatibility with other consoles. It already supports over 20. So at $450, if you're a die-hard like arcade fan and you love to play arcade titles on your own consoles, this seems to me like probably one of the, you know, best, highest grade arcade sticks that you could probably get. Again, I mean, I haven't purchased a lot of these. My only experience are with the ones that I've made myself, and really just this TR Fight Stick. But just based off of the weight, the quality of the components, the materials, the fact that this is like metal and they're using like a special glass that's like made in Japan, the fact that it's serviceable yourself pretty much, highly customizable. You are getting, I think, a lot, but again, you are also paying a lot. And it's up to you whether you think $450 is a lot. I think it's a lot, but really kind of this is a very niche, very high-end product, so I mean, I think the price is probably justified, but again, that's your determination. TR Fight Stick was kind enough to give me a discount code to use. I believe it is Tito. I'll write it here on screen. Again, but that's also an affiliate link, so I'll get a little portion of each purchase. I'll also put the non-affiliate link for those that don't want to use the affiliate link. But just note that there is a $50 discount code if you use coupon code Tito. Let's move on to the questions segment of the video. I want to thank all my Patreons. These are all questions from my Patreon supporters, so if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave a link to it down below in the comments. The first one is coming from Tony, and Tony writes a question: what inspired you to mod? Probably about 10 years ago, I did my first mod. And really it's sort of become the whole ethos of the channel. It's really making those old school consoles we had and just making them better. And the first kind of mod that I did was a Game Boy, where I put a backlight mod onto it, because obviously with the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Pocket, you couldn't really play those in the dark. So I wanted to sort of improve upon that and be able to play it in sort of any type of lighting conditions. So I got a backlight kit. And I've sort of been hooked ever since, you know, slowly doing more and more complex mods. And then when I started the channel, I just, you know, basically I was doing a mod a week. So I've gotten a lot of experience with it. But originally it just kind of came out of, I wouldn't call it necessity, but sort of just doing quality of life improvements on these older consoles, especially now with like technology with the way it is, all these incredible modders, they're coming up with incredible mods to make these old consoles better. So yeah, that's kind of what originally inspired it. I would say the Game Boy, and just making it better and more playable. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Tony. And the next question comes from Todd. And Todd is asking, what is your entertainment setup like? Do you use your movie watching setup for gaming as well? Or do you have a separate setup for that? So I live in a very small apartment. So really my movie watching setup is also my gaming setup. And a dream of mine is that to at some point move into a place where I can have maybe like a big basement and have everything set up. But because space is so constrained, I have to store most of my consoles. And then I only have out a few. So right now I have my PS2, PS5, and my Nintendo Switch connected to my entertainment center. And then if I want let's say I want to play a console I just modded, I really just have one spot for retro consoles. So I would take the PS2 out and then I would put in the other console. But yeah, very simple setup. It's nothing like some of the folks I see photos of. They have beautiful setups where everything is connected. So you just kind of go to a switcher and you can kind of select what console you want to play. At some point, that's my dream. I'll have a really cool setup like that. But for the time being, it's just kind of, I got to pick and choose which consoles I want. So I have my two current gens, the PS5 and the Switch, and then I have one retro console kind of hooked up at a time. And then I switch that out depending on what I want to play. And then Todd goes on to ask, what's currently your go-to gaming system when you want to blow off energy? And I would say it was the Switch for a while. And it's funny, I have this modding channel, but because it takes up so much time, I don't play too much. So usually I would play Switch games, mostly in handheld mode when I have the TV running, playing a movie. But whenever a title that I'm excited about comes out, usually that's been for the PS5 and the Switch. I usually play those to kind of blow off steam. Every once in a while, especially after I do a mod on a console, I'll kind of get into that retro console kick and I'll play games for that console. But usually, I like staying up to date with kind of the current stuff, but I kind of only focus on certain franchises, Resident Evil and Silent Hill. But obviously those don't come out very frequently. I used to play a lot of Final Fantasy, but those games just take up way too much time. I tried to pick up the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but man, it was just, I had a hard time getting into it, especially with how much time it takes to make the videos for the channel. But yeah, when there is a new Resident Evil, I put everything down and I play that, and that's kind of what I use to kind of blow off steam. The next couple questions comes from Ross51, and Ross asks, how do you tackle organizing tools and spare or removed parts? What, if anything, do you trash? So I actually, I have it's a cardboard box. It's a big cardboard box. And I put a lot of the spare parts or used parts in there, and it's something I can kind of easily refer back to. And actually, maybe this is a future video I'll do, because I also have a bunch of bins that are console specific. So let's say, for example, I have a mod that maybe I was either sent or maybe I don't have a plan for at the time. I'll put that into the bin for that specific console. So I kind of refer back to and take a look at what I have, and sometimes I can combine multiple mods for a single console, and that'll make for a really cool video, like putting a bunch of mods into a Super Nintendo or something. So I have bins for that. But let's say, for example, I have a Game Boy Advance motherboard and I pulled the CPU and the RAM off of it. Well, that board is still good and it has spare components, so what I'll do is I usually take all those. It's not usable in its current form, but I'll take that and I'll put this in this big cardboard box, and kind of around the end of the year, I'll kind of pluck through and see if there's anything I need, and if not, I'll probably sell that entire lot of stuff, because as you can imagine, I have a lot of kind of spare parts, whether it's shells, motherboards, just a lot of other miscellaneous parts where I can't use them by itself. I just put them in this big box, and like I said, I'll kind of revisit it at the end of the year, and if I feel like I really don't need anything, I don't throw it away. I try to sell it, so I'll list it on eBay, because I'm sure there's folks out there who can use all those parts for repairs if they have a repair shop or something. I definitely try not to throw anything away, because the whole point of this hobby is to kind of restore the old things and not really waste too much. The stuff that I throw out are consumables, maybe if I have an extra cut of wire which is, too short. I probably will just throw that away. So that's what I do when it comes to storage. So I do have bins for each specific console, but that's for like full-on mods that maybe I'll revisit later, and other maybe useful parts. But then I have the bin, which is like the leftover stuff. So shells, like for example, like when I do a reshell, I'll save those original shells and I'll put them in that box, and I'll sell like the whole lot, because I'm sure there's someone who could use the original shells, because the original shells are really, really good quality. The aftermarket ones are good quality now. They used to be crap. That's kind of harsh, but they used to be really poor quality. So the OEM shells are like the best, and they still are the best. I will say OEM shells are the best. So I do save those because, that's just so wasteful to throw them away. But then you have a second question. Do you ever mess up CPU/RAM chip transplants, and how do you fix or troubleshoot that? I wouldn't say I've like horribly messed up, like, destroyed the chip, but for example, bridging happens, especially with something like the Game Boy Advance. The very fine pitch legs, it's very easy to bridge something and not notice it, even with like magnifying lens. But my goal is always to go in to not make a mistake, so I make sure before I even start soldering in the legs, everything is like perfectly aligned. But usually, if something's messed up, it's usually caused by a bridge somewhere, but it's fairly easy to troubleshoot that. With practice, I've gotten pretty good where I don't really mess up, and if the mess up is mostly just a bridged couple pins, and really just a matter of touching up and taking a look, using your multimeter, making sure there's no bridging, and checking for continuity with pads. So this last question comes from Arcady, and he asks, I would like to know where you get your alcohol dispenser and the chip suction cup thing, and do you still use your LTD drivers from after the sponsorship? So he's referring to this. So this is my little isopropyl alcohol dispenser. It's a very nice, here, it has like this lid, and then you just push down gently. You can actually just push down with your Q-tip, and then it dispenses a little bit of liquid. And this I got from, I think it was Amazon, but the brand is called Menda. I don't know if you can see that. So the brand is called Menda, and then this is the Hako 394 suction tool. And I got this, I believe, from eBay, but you can also pick this up from the Hako website, Hako 394, and it's just a little very nice suction tool. And when it comes to the LTT drivers, I use them, so really when I'm here on the bench, I have my iFixit, which I use here, and I use that for most of my mods, but I use the LTT stuff at home. So this is the studio, but at home I use almost exclusively the LTT driver. They're both fantastic. Very, very good. They're honestly very comparable. I would say the LTT driver probably has a few more features. It has like the fidget spin thing on top. And then the case itself is nice in that you can like separate the cap and the bottom, and they're all magnetic. But yeah, no, I do still use it. It's a fantastic one. Both of them. You really can't go wrong with either. Maybe just get whichever one is cheaper. But yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Again, thank you to all my Patreons for all your support, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, if you're a Patreon supporter, ask them on the Patreon page, and I'll be sure to answer them in the next episode. Oh, and if you have any suggestions for what you would like to see on this channel, definitely drop them in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you again next time.